like shit from all the lack of sleep. You know?
Yeah, I mean, the questions are just really like, I'll do a quick
Great.
intro and then I'll welcome you. And then I normally try to, I mean, this is only my second one, by the way. I normally
great.
try to go back to the start, like talk about your childhood a little bit.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Bring in
So
an
like personal story, anything
Yeah.
else you want me to focus on?
And then talk a little bit about early career highlights. I was going to talk about YC a little bit.
Sure.
Because I just want to highlight, like, you were in YC.
Yeah.
You had this idea, you're like, shit, and you pivot, like,
Yeah.
like,
actually, I'm going to talk about you there because you were instrumental there, meeting Josh and doing the whole acquisition. That was a huge part of it. Yeah.
I always remember those early calls, like, just, like, but you were different from the get-go. But like for me, I just want to get like, and is it kind of safe to like from where you are now?
Yeah.
Are you like, do you want Nuvo to get more out there? Like, because like for your size, it's, you know, there's smaller companies make way more noise. Are you like, we're going to make more noise?
I think so. Yeah. What I would tell you again, without recording, just between you and me as an advisor, is I think that we always made noise early days, you know, raising the funding rounds, growing. And then the past 2 or 3 years, I would say maybe we went a little more quiet, but especially this year, if you've noticed, we acquired a company. I started a newsletter about the applications of AI to our platform. We've expanded into the US. We added managed trans, custom. So I think we're starting to be much more out there because we feel so confident in what we built since we rebuilt our entire tech stack, basically. We rebuilt last year our platform, NuvoOS. So we do want to be more out there telling our story. There's some things that we won't share just out of like strategic, you know, avoiding competitors. But we're happy to tell our story. It's always helped us with customers, with investors, with employees, you know.
And then some of it is just like touching on COVID. What can you remember?
Yeah.
Touching on some particular highs and lows.
Totally. Yeah.
Biggest piece unit. Yeah, a lot of it is just very, and like bring you, like, what's a typical day in the life of the CEO of Nuvocargo?
Yeah.
That type of stuff, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I think outside of like revenue numbers, everything is, I can be an open book as much as you can.
I would never, I've never got
it. No worries. Yeah.
Just the highlight. Good to go?
Amazing.
Okay. Should I change the...
Am I supposed to look at one of the cameras or are they meant to be there to have different takes? Just look at Graham? Okay, amazing. Like here? Is that good? Okay, thank you. I'll leave it there. Great.
Will I go? Okay. Welcome back to another episode of In the Seaweeds, the show where we deep dive with industry leaders and the best founders. And today it's a privilege to introduce the amazing Deepak Chugani. Deepak, welcome to In the Seaweeds.
Thank you, Graham. It's so nice to see you after so long.
It's great to be here in Soho in New York recording with you. Let's jump right into it. Take us back to your childhood, the early years. Was there an entrepreneurial spark there from those ones?
That's a good question. So my parents are Indian. I grew up in Ecuador. I was born in Africa, in Kenya. So, you know, when you grow up in Latin America or even in India in emerging markets, I think a lot of the people that are successful are business owners. So it was almost like a default where you assume, hey, if you're ambitious, you're going to try to start your own business. So ever since I was young, always trying to understand what different family businesses that we knew, whether it was a small landscaping business around or an import-export business. And obviously my father started a logistics business. That's how we ended up in Ecuador. So I was always excited about the possibility of being an entrepreneur, right? Since very young.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And, you know, when you look at your early career before Nuvo, when you were working in the finance industry, kind of looking back now, were there kind of career highlights or were there kind of positive formative habits that you had? Was it, because that journey also looked quite interesting.
Definitely. I would say that I was very fortunate to find an opportunity to get a job as an investment banking analyst at Bank of America Merrill Lynch here in New York. And I didn't go to an Ivy League school, and that was kind of considered an Ivy League job. So it was kind of a big deal for me. I saw it as an opportunity to play in the big league, so to speak, for the first time, even though everyone today makes fun of everyone doing investment banking and consulting. It was actually very exciting for me. I was really into the movie of being on Wall Street and trying to learn from doing these big deals. To answer your question more directly, actually, funnily enough, the more time has passed, I've come to appreciate very much that first experience where, you know, I did a year in New York and then a little bit in Mexico when I didn't get the visa. And I think anyone who's done investment banking would say something similar, where it's so intense at such an early age. Now you hear all the startups talking about
Yes.
996, which is
Yeah.
this joke of we work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And I think someone was joking on Twitter with me just yesterday that that would have been your best week of the year in investment banking, right? You would come in at 9:30, you would stay till 2 a.m. every day, 7 days a week. And I don't think anyone is proud of that looking back if you really went through it, being sleep deprived and not working at your best. But I will say that the reason you would work all these long hours is because there was so much you had to get done with such an intense attention to detail.
Yes.
And at the age of 21, when I started, I was already having to send emails and pitch decks to CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. And so you develop this muscle of quadruple checking everything, maybe to a point that's OCD and is not healthy. But to this day, I think that it instills this very intense work ethic
Yes.
and this ability to be around people that do things much bigger than you at a very young age, and gives you the ability to think about what should I say, what should I not say, being in this room. And it just gave me a boost of confidence doing reasonably well in that environment. Although if anyone from my team is listening, they know I was like the most mediocre analyst from that whole class, because I was so frustrated with some of the things we were asked to do and the deadlines that didn't make sense to me, right? But it was very formative. I'm very happy I did it, and I do think it still has an impact on me today.
Yeah. So I guess it also helps kind of, looking at business from a very analytical point of view,
Yes.
as well as the kind of deep work ethic that you learn at such an early age.
Yes, you're building financial models and pitch decks talking about this sector in retail and what's happening with, the energy sector. Or sometimes you would get hired. I was in the Latin America team, so you would get hired by a government to talk about how they're going to do an RFP for who's going to help build a part of infrastructure projects. Like I spent a lot of time in Mexico City. I still remember back then,
Yeah.
2014, everyone was trying to pitch on helping build pitch decks to do deals related to the Mexico City airport,
Okay.
which ended up getting canceled by the latest president after that. So it makes it very interesting. But I would also say, after having operated now as a founder for many years, uh, it also doesn't let you understand what it's like to actually run a business. You think too much in spreadsheets and high level, and you don't get the nuances of what each business is about. You just know what they all look like on a
Yes.
spreadsheet and in
Yeah.
FactSet or on Google, right?
Yeah. So that's a good segue to exiting the financial world and getting kind of moving towards the startup and the technology world. So take us through kind of the end of the finance world and landing in YC.
Yeah, I would say that this is one of the things I find myself telling a lot of people in their early 20s now, is I think that you don't even realize, but the mentors around you play a big role.
Yeah.
I consider you a mentor as well. You were huge in our early days. I would say, going back to the finance days, just through friends of friends, I knew some entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
venture-backed technology entrepreneurs, and they were thankful enough. They were gracious enough to give me a few minutes of their time every once in a while. And one of them, Sebastian Castro, who's now built $1 billion fintech business in Latin America, he was kind enough to encourage me to really quit and do things. And the other one, Kareem Mathieu, who's now the founder of Ramp, which is a $22 billion business here in New York. They were kind of doing their prior companies or transitioning right as I was a second year analyst, and being able to catch up with them or with people in their orbit. I realized, hey, these people are a few years older than me and they're doing these amazing things. And for whatever reason, even though I had no technology background, I quit. I took my first year banking bonus, and I said, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna pick an idea. Which, by the way, I don't recommend that approach, but it ended up working out in the end.
Yeah.
And then when I landed on the first idea, I really got obsessed with Y Combinator. And I've said this story publicly many times, but long story short is I consumed every piece of content they ever put out. I interviewed as many alums as I could here in New York. And then eventually I applied, I got recommendations. And Jared Friedman, who I'm still in touch with to this day, decided to take a chance on me because they didn't really fund single non-tech founders. And I was also the first person from Ecuador that they funded. And all of those things were just truly life-changing. I think that is still probably one of the most important moments for me in my life. Getting that phone call from YC, from Adora Chung many, many years ago at this point. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So you go to YC, you're working on a particular idea. You've at a certain stage raised millions of dollars, and you've decided, okay, this isn't the one, I'm going to pivot to something. Take us back to that. I mean, was that, how terrifying was that moment? Or
it was very tough. I was 25 after having done YC, I think. Yeah, if my math is right. 25, I had raised $1.2 million. dollars. I had done the whole thing, the 3-month program at YC, demo day. Uh, no one wanted to fund this business. It was a recruiting business, or recruiting adjacent. And every VC hated it. So I ended up raising 1.2 million from 41 angel investors with small checks and really like grinding through these phone calls. And these are all people who trusted a first-time founder, very young, with this nascent idea. So only 6 to 7 months after YC, towards the end of 2018, did I decide this is not working. And even then, YC was instrumental, speaking with Dalton Caldwell and a few of the other partners about, just, hey, this is not feeling like it's going to work. I've only burned 300 or 400K. Was tried to be extremely frugal back then, and I really felt like 1.2 million was all the money in the world, right?
yeah,
And when I realized it wasn't working, I remember I had already given a lot of thought to like adjacent ideas in the space. None of them were exciting to me. None of them felt interesting. None of them felt like the kind of thing that could be big after what I learned being around all these amazing companies at YC, which went on to be, many of them, very successful. My YC group had Substack and Replit, which is in the news
wow,
now, and just all these companies that when you look back
amazing.
now, they were not obvious winners back then, but they just went on to be so big. And so I think I did whatever I could at that age, pattern matching what I felt would work. And I didn't see anything in that recruiting world.
Yeah,
So I let all of our 8 employees go and spent 3 months pivoting and researching ideas, tried to be methodical. And actually, in one of those conferences to research, that's how I met you.
yes,
And you were, I don't know if you know this, but you were instrumental in introducing me to Josh Wolf, the founder of Cargo Sprint,
yes,
who ended up selling us his freight forwarder,
yeah,
which let us kick everything off,
yeah,
having traction quickly, studying workflows, and being really aggressive in that all of 2019 to get it off the ground with a lot of urgency, the way you learn in YC, right?
yeah. I remember the first time we spoke, I was kind of taken aback at your sheer energy. But I always remember, one of the things you had described, some of that, what you've just said in YC, and I think you said something like, I'm thinking about the supply chain software space, but a lot of people are saying it's not the space to go into. Why is it? And I remember going, oh, there's such an opportunity to build great businesses, which kind of like, so you get to a stage of saying, okay, I'm going to execute on what's now Nuvo
Yeah.
Argo. Like what was it like kind of day one? Was it like, has the vision kind of stayed like, you've been very very clear on cross border and the Mexican trade, and that has that kind of stayed pretty consistent over the years?
That's a great question. I mean, if you would have asked me even 6 months ago, yes, we've basically just been executing on U.S. Mexico cross border trade this year with a company that we acquired called Merge Transportation. We expanded into the US, and our team has been, very fierce throughout the past few months, building all these functionalities to get us to the cutting edge of the US market as well. So, in a way, the answer to your question is yes, it was quite consistent, but it has definitely evolved. I think when we started, we would say things like, we want to be something like Flexport, but for US Mexico. And today we would say something very different, which is, hey, we know that we want to be the partner to North American shippers that have ideally a cross-border supply chain with Mexico and Canada. But even if they don't, we've evolved to this company that has multiple products like managed transportation, customs
Wow.
brokerage. We've really rebuilt our entire software stack as of 18 months ago with our platform NuvoS for the age of AI. So there's constantly been moments to reinvent the company, whether it was with COVID or, the funding craze of 2021, and then having to kind of figure things out in a much tougher environment with the 3-year freight recession, and now with everything that's happened in the age of AI and expanding markets. So it stayed in general, I would say the same. Like, we want to be a large technology enabled or AI enabled now logistics company that is a great partner to shippers. But the tactics and the products, and even the markets that we serve have definitely evolved since we started.
Yeah. And people often ask me, I've been lucky in my career to kind of meet and talk to probably, I'd say maybe every founder, and somebody asked me recently, they were like, are there any kind of, really strong founders that keep relatively under the radar compared to their scale? And I would always say, what you've built is unbelievable. I mean, this is a company worth um, north of $250 million at the last raise. I mean, how does it feel when you like take a moment when you wake up in the morning and you think about like day one when you're, you know, registering the website and you're like, I built like, how does that feel?
I mean, it's funny as an entrepreneur. I think other entrepreneurs will relate, including you. You actually almost never think about that,
Yeah,
right? You're always thinking about the next 10 fires or 10
yeah,
challenges. But you asking that question makes me reflect,
yeah,
and it makes me very proud and excited. And I think that, once you've been around the startup world 7 or 8 years, like I have, with the pivot and with Nuvo, you see a lot of failures and you see a lot of success stories, and you realize that at least the conclusion I've drawn is a lot of it is about the journey and the growth that you personally get.
yeah,
So I think that yes, I'm very proud of our scale, what we've learned how to do, the products that we've built, but then also just thinking back to me at 25, 26, not understanding investors and customers and how to build software and how to hire executives and how to run a team across the continent. And
yeah,
we're doing acquisitions now. And so that's the craziest part to me, is what I consider to be someone experienced in business uh, became true very, very fast, like in a matter of 2 or 3 years since starting the company. So that's the part I look at most fondly. And I'm always thinking, how am I going to keep growing in the next few years so that it feels equally as steep, the learning curve, and equally as gratifying to do this thing that
yeah,
came out of nowhere. And that's how I think about it. Not so much
yeah,
the valuation, which is also obviously a nice thing at times, but
yeah,
I think it's just been super rewarding, the journey. And quite frankly, the most rewarding part is how many difficult things you have to overcome
yeah,
as a founder CEO, especially with all the volatility of freight, right?
yeah. Totally. I mean, that's something. I was listening to a podcast recently with the CEO of Clear, and she talked about this episode where she was trying to raise money, and the investor said like, "Why should you be the CEO?" And she said, "Because I am a fucking animal." But like, I think a lot of people don't realize like people will read your posts, or they look at the valuation, or they look at the size of the company, but um I don't think a lot of people realize just again like how much of a roller coaster it is when you're living it. It's pretty steep curves, right?
It's extremely steep, and I would say that the crazier it looks from the outside, uh, the probably 10x is it's probably 10x as crazy as you think on the inside, even when things are going well.
Yeah,
The highs are high, the lows are low. And that's why I'm saying that over time, you start by being very tactical. Like, how do I learn how to do this? How do I learn how to do that? You also have different motivations. I think that when you're at least for me, when you're in your 20s and you get to be a founder and you're given, $75 million of capital, um,
yeah,
a lot of what you think about is, am I going to screw it up? Like, what am I making the wrong decision? So people who know me will know that I'll obsessively try to reach out to people who are a few steps ahead of me. Every one of our funding rounds, we added
right.
entrepreneurs that had done it before,
Wow,
including you. We would people that I could call and ask questions,
awesome.
um, learning so much on the job. And so I think that the most gratifying thing after all this time is learning to be a little more level headed in both the highs and the lows, because they are going to continue to be quite crazy. Um, and again, I think the business model also lends itself to that with freight, where you sometimes there is cyclical things. So it can be even crazier in a business like freight, where there's an operational component, there's software, there's macro things like with US Mexico and tariffs and all that
Yes,
stuff, right? But I would say that definitely, I don't think people understand, unless they have friends that are startup founders who will open up, how crazy the experience can be in terms of the highs and the lows.
yeah, definitely. And we're living through particularly extraordinary times in lots of ways, but in our world, like the software world, let's say, AI is just moving at a pace that we haven't seen before. And um like you mentioned earlier, you've got these 996 startups, you've got younger people coming through, you've got the promise of engineering being 90% automated by the end of the year, maybe. Who knows? I wouldn't say so, but if you think about that and you think about, you've got a really interesting perspective, because a lot of people that have built software supply chain companies come from the industry, or they come from the software world. Um, if you had a message for young founders that were looking to build a software company in the supply chain space, um, would you say like there is because I think the narrative used to be, hey, these people are still using fax machines. You just write some code and you'll have a unicorn. Like there is like very very intricate difficulties in every step of the supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, oof, I could do a whole 1 hour just on that from everything I've learned. So the first thing I'll say is I used to always show up and say, I'm not an industry expert. I've barely been in the industry, but when you do a startup for more than 6 years in the
Oh, you're an
space,
expert.
you become somewhat of an expert. I don't know if I am a full expert yet. Um, and so I'll say a couple things that might be interesting. First of all, it is very interesting when you have been in Silicon Valley or in the software world, the cycles that happen of excitement, right?
Yeah,
So already in 6 years, there was huge excitement the first 2 or 3 years we started
yeah,
with everything under the sun getting funded. And then you had 2 years of everyone hating anything that had a
yeah.
logistics operational or service component.
Mhm.
People were like, pure software is the thing that matters. You had Convoy blow up. You had all these different freight tech companies that didn't work out. You had all this news about different companies that were just not doing well because they were burning too much money and hiring too many people.
Yeah,
And that's what I thought the narrative would be. And then, yet again, in the past 9 months, I would say you're seeing some of these VCs. Oh, now software is commoditized, and now you have to do AI native services and AI roll ups with M&A, and that's the only way to keep value. And then you're seeing again a resurgence and excitement in companies applying AI in freight. Like I'm angel invested in a few of them. I'm seeing the YC batches. There's companies raising money from the best investors in freight again. There's companies like Happy Robot and Fleetworks and all these companies that are proving that this is an industry where you can find ways to take what AI and software can do and create acceleration. And one anecdote that you might find interesting is, 6 years going to these freight conferences every year, it was a little bit like, oh, these startups, it's all BS. Like, what are they doing? Like, it's all about relationships. And then this year at Manifest in January, I remember being shocked by how every single person who used to say that to me was freaking out about AI because they could see how it's going to actually disrupt their business. And they were bragging about what AI startup are you working with. And then literally 9 months later, everyone's like now has AI fatigue, right? So I didn't want to ramble on. What I'm saying is it's crazy how
super interesting.
quickly perspectives change if
Yeah.
you're really paying attention.
Yes.
And so my advice to founders, and by the way, it's advice I try to follow myself. I don't know if I'm always the best at following it, is I think you need to try to form an opinion on problems that you're solving for customers that are enduring, that are defensible. I think you do have to look at the competitive landscape. People used to
Yeah.
say, don't worry about competitors, but now there's 15 voice AI startups and 10 startups doing, AI for workflow automation and freight, and all of them are raising a lot of money, like Augment. And again, there's all these companies out there. So I think you do have to have a little bit more of an eye for what can I do that's unique? What's my unfair advantage? What am I doing that positions me to benefit as the foundation models and LLMs get better over time?
Yeah.
And then I think you have to be thoughtful about why you might be the right founding team in the space. Quite frankly, I had a lot of energy, but I think I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't have domain expertise in the early days. And I think I'm trying to be open about that so other founders know you can't just wing it in everything.
Yeah.
We got here, but there was a lot of mistakes. And so I think that balance of I have a unique perspective, I know what I'm doing, and then I also understand the new technologies, the new tools, that sweet spot is very difficult. And I think whoever can figure that out can build very successful companies right now. It's a golden era right now, right, to build companies.
Yeah. It is super interesting. And with AI, I mean, I don't think we've never seen a technology evolve so quickly. Like it reminds me of iOS 26 came out and there'll be updates incrementally over the course of the year, but it's an annual event. This feels like one of those every month.
Honestly, we feel like it's every couple weeks or
Yeah.
every week with all these startups that we get pitched by, we deploy, we're building on the tools ourselves. I am, especially in the past 4 weeks, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like I'm inundated with funding rounds and startups releasing new things. And
Yes.
so I really do think it's there's more exuberance in AI than maybe I felt in late 2021
Wow.
for just general startups. But then if you're not in AI and you don't have a good story, it's not a great time either. But
Yeah.
in that segment, people are extremely excited and exuberant, right?
Yeah. And going back to that 2021, 2020 era, the COVID times, kind of a two-part question. First of all, there's a kind of a narrative that COVID was a kind of a generational event for supply chain because every company in the world realized that they didn't have a great one and that they had to kind of fix it. And coming out of it, they had to spend more on digital. Is that something you kind of see and buy into?
It's a good question. I mean, here's what I would say. I think that might be true for ocean and air because it was particularly crazy what happened with China, US,
Yes.
and freight rates went from $2,000 a container to $20,000. We would get asked that a lot because that was happening at the time and startups were benefiting. Everyone was valued on top line and gross revenue, and companies with similar scale to ours got valued at $1 billion because their
Wow.
revenue got super inflated with that
Yeah.
one off event. So I think it was more the case there. And I wouldn't be the best person to ask because we were always dealing with shippers that were talking about their North America truckload,
Yeah.
which got inflated, but never to that
To that level.
degree.
Yeah.
So maybe in their case, yes. I will say that there was a lot of talk about that.
Yeah.
I didn't feel it like I felt it this year with AI. I feel
Wow.
much more
Yeah.
excitement and aperture, and even shippers who never wanted to talk about software texting us with questions. Some of them don't
Nice.
even make sense. They're just like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing with AI?" Because
Yeah.
I need to like talk about this
Yeah.
and tell my boss about it.
Yeah.
And I never felt that in
Yeah.
2022, at
Yeah.
least in our world.
Yeah.
I do feel it all the time.
Yeah.
The past 9 months or 12 months.
I totally agree. I mean, even like if you look at budgets this year, there's like a new budget, an AI budget in a lot of companies, and
Yeah,
it's something they're looking to spend more money on. And I think OpenAI and Anthropic have, you know, their SaaS pricing is like 1 million, 10 million, or 100 million, and they're trying to, there's so much to digitize in these medium and large companies.
totally.
And I guess same in supply chain. There's so much opportunity.
There is, and I think if you see I think it's the earnings or the public reports, I don't know if it's confirmed, of Accenture and BCG and these companies that are also being hired for AI transformation, whether it's in the supply chain or not, you can just tell that there's a lot of hunger and appetite for businesses to figure out what this means for them, and there's a lot of pilots. But then I think we're already entering the age. There was this recent MIT report everyone's citing where 95% of Gen AI pilots fail.
Yes.
And then, by the way, we feel this acutely at Nuvocargo, where we've been building technology and applying it to our own operation and our team. So we understand, even with a company that has a DNA that's technological, that's innovative, how challenging change management can be. And we're seeing it again with the company that we acquired. Even at such a small scale, there's a challenge. I can't even imagine how challenging this is at very large companies. So I think there's an opportunity to act as a bridge for shippers and maybe large logistics companies to really adopt these tools and do it in a way that's more involved and drive results. I think that's why all these AI startups are doing forward deployed engineering model like
Yes.
Palantir did, or
Yeah.
why we, with our managed transportation product, are seeing a lot of demand where shippers will say, I don't understand this AI thing. I don't want to go on a journey of hiring a TMS and looking at rate engines and looking at all the AI vendors and looking at compliance tools. And Nuvocargo, that's where our product has evolved, is we'll just do all that for you.
Yes.
And you will not only probably save money, but you will also leapfrog your AI adoption, if that makes sense. And I think there's an opportunity to do things like that in many different sectors, right?
Definitely. I saw one of the Nuvo blogs recently, and it talked about the AI technology you guys deploy to read documents, and it's really interesting because the image that you have is an actual trucking docket, and you've literally got pen and paper and people scribbling stuff on, which is amazing. But when you think about that, and you think about, from the time a shipment is sold to the time it needs to be loaded, the transit, the time it arrives, making sure there's a proof of delivery and all that stuff. There's so much to digitize there in terms of AI. um, and then on the opposite side, you have, if you extrapolate the speed that we're going at with AI, and you think of 2030, which is not that far away, people say, will we live in a world where AI agents will just do everything for us? Like, how do you think about that? Like, there's a big journey ahead. Like, you think of all the documents and all of the flows that you guys have to manage.
That's a great question. I don't know if I'm going to give you the best answer, but I'll give you our answer at Nouveau Cargo and what we see, right? So we have we have gotten pitched by, at this point, over 100 think we're tracking like 110 AI startups and vendors over the past
Wow.
18 months. Maybe we're on the high end of that because we like to hear the pitches. We like to
Yeah.
speak with startups. I like helping startup founders. So
Yeah.
sometimes if they say, in YC, will you help me pivot? Can I show up at your office and, see some workflow that I can? We will do those things because, again, I'm trying to keep up with everything that's
Yeah.
happened since we didn't launch after ChatGPT, right? And so I can tell you that I think we have a reasonably good pulse of what is possible with the technology. I think what my team would always tell me, Deepak, I see you're getting super excited with these startups and their demos, and they look beautiful. But the last 5 or 3 or 7 or
Yes.
20%
Yeah.
of AI agents hallucinating or accuracy, like you just can't have an error rate of 5%
No.
on a supply chain, right? Like that will cost your customer hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, or it will stop things and create delays like at the border. So I wanted to give that preamble, but to answer your question, we believe that a combination of understanding, you know, do you have a system of record to read and write
Yes.
data that can work well with agents, where you can integrate with providers that help you build agents for certain workflows, like AI that is extracting, classifying, categorizing, and matching documents.
Yeah.
And then having checks and balances. And this gets a little technical, but something my team has obviously taught me is there's methods that you can deploy with things like document validation or POD validation, where it's more of a scientific method and you have checks and balances instead of, oh, I'm just okay if AI has a 5% error rate. No, you first of all, you have different checks and balances to get that accuracy rate up. And then you have a process so that when the accuracy is off or we're not sure, there's a human in the loop that can review it. And so then if you think about that, you then have to go one step further and change that human being's job description. You're no longer doing POD validation. You are reviewing the 5% of PODs that didn't successfully meet our validation. You're training the models to get better so the 93% goes up to 97 and eventually 100%. And then you might have time back that you have to dedicate to other tasks, or that team can be smaller, but those folks can repurpose their time and energy on more strategic tasks like exception management, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's where the world is going. I think you can't just show up at a big old school company who's working on ERP, an old school ERP or an old school TMS, just build AI on top, slap it on top, and everything works
Yeah.
great. I think it's a combination of changing roles, job descriptions, reading and writing data in a system of record that can track, event-based logic, like what happened here? Are we ready for an agent to take over of this task that I can track with a certain degree of accuracy? Who do I integrate with for things that I don't want to do, buy versus build?
Yes.
And then really think about your domain and your workflows to think, I think in this workflow, AI can actually do most of it, and I want to monitor what it does
Yeah.
without hurting my customer experience. And some things, by the way, you want to keep the human doing most of the
Yes.
work, or at least supervising some of what would be called grunt work, so that they can continue to build deep shipper and carrier and vendor relationships.
Yeah. Wow. Super insightful. And on the funding side, Deepak, you've raised more than $75 million, which is incredible. Um, has it gotten easier? Does it get easier? Does it get harder?
Does what get easier? Fundraising?
Fundraising?
um, well, look, I would say that we lived through a very particular time, 2019 to 2022.
Yeah.
Uh, People who know me know this. We were very fortunate that all of our 4 funding rounds came together in a matter of days, if not weeks.
Wow.
So I think that was a particularly odd time, right? Um, I think that if you have a clear AI story right now and your growth is exciting, you will still raise like those 2021 rounds. If it's not, or your story is less clear, or the investor can't wrap their head around why what you're doing is so well positioned in the future that we're all heading into that we don't really understand, then fundraising gets really, really difficult. Nuvocargo hasn't needed to fundraise, so I don't have an updated view per se. But I think that those rules apply, from all my angel investments and founder friends. It's if you have certain numbers going up and to the right in an exponential way,
Yeah.
and you have a story that makes sense in the context of where the world is going, then you will raise capital. There's almost too much capital for those top companies, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and if you don't have those things, you're going to have a harder time.
Yeah. I know what you mean. And as you've grown the business and as you've grown the footprint and the brand is becoming bigger and bigger. I see it everywhere I go now. Um, how do you think about, and you mentioned the acquisition recently, is that something that you think about deeply in the philosophy of growing the business, the acquisition side of things?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a timely one. This is something that is maybe about a year old. And I don't know who your listeners are, but if there's people that are running freight brokerages that want to sell, that they can't make sense of what's going to happen with AI, but they have great shipper relationships, great carrier relationships, we will always look at opportunistic acquisitions. And it is a strategy that we're excited to explore more deeply. You know, when I study the companies that got really large in our space, whether it's Echo or Transplace or some of these big names, I think for all of them, M&A was a core part of their growth strategy.
Yes.
But we really don't think of ourselves as a company where it's M&A or nothing.
Yeah.
It needs to be one of the levers that we can pull to add capabilities or to work more efficiently to get to the scale that we want. We almost see it as, is it better to acquire this business and bring in this entrepreneur that we're excited to work with, like Jamie from Merge, or do we think we'll get the same bang for buck just investing in more sales reps and marketing? And freight is a particular industry because if you're in a soft part of the cycle or a freight recession like we have been, you're in a moment where shippers are, even if your product is the best in the world, we hear it from all of them. They want to have less vendors. They don't want to keep adding new providers. And so in a moment like that, M&A became an interesting strategy for us. But if the Fed just cut rates yesterday,
Yeah.
and there's a possibility that things start ripping again and capacity gets tight. It might just make more sense to grow organically. But we will always look at that. I have an M&A background, a private equity background, and so it's hard for me not to consider
Yeah.
that approach. And we're quite ambitious. If there's an opportunity to do that, to get much bigger than we are today, we will always consider that. And we've noticed that freight entrepreneurs that don't know how to navigate what's coming with AI, they're very excited to explore selling to a company like us versus selling to like a private equity firm that doesn't know how to operate these businesses and won't give them credit for synergies and strategy. And then also, uh, you know, just like technology companies or VC funded companies, sometimes to your point, they know AI really well, but they're back where I was in 2020, where we're learning a lot about the space and maybe don't understand it as well, to have the insights of this is where we're going to get real leverage from AI. And this is kind of a goose chase that's going to take you a year to realize you shouldn't have automated it. You should have kept the humans in the loop.
Yeah.
And I think we have a lot of insights that make us a very interesting acquirer for companies that are good businesses, but they don't know what to do with this future of AI. And we found there's a lot of those.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look back and think about, the growth trajectory of Nuvo over the years, it's been up and to the right. And you think thinking back to the early days when you're a scrappy founder and you're kind of doing everything, and then you get to a stage where you're just like an elastic band that breaks. Um, and and take us through that to where you are now, where you've built this amazing team around you. Like,
Yeah.
what was it like where you were like trying to do too much, and what's the process
Yeah.
like? Because it's not an easy process to get a great team around you.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. It never ends. I think any entrepreneur will tell you that. I think most people say the best entrepreneurs have like a 50% success rate with executive hires.
Yeah.
I think we've done a little bit better than that, but not by a lot because it is quite difficult. And executive hiring is this very unnatural thing where you bring someone who's amazing in a certain context, in a certain company, in a certain culture, and you try to almost like transplant them into yours
Yes.
at a different time with different challenges, with different people, with a different vision. So I've just learned to appreciate how complex it is to have successful executive hiring. And really, as a founder, if you're trying to grow something big with multiple products and build this multi-hundred or multi-hundred million or multi-billion-dollar business, you need to lean on a great team, right? And
Yes.
so I would say that I don't know if I've done an amazing job. Some people and peers they believe we've done a really great job of hiring execs, and they see that I've tried to move towards a world where the job itself allows me to do what I do best and really put very strong people in the disciplines that the company needs, but that I'm not good at, like operations. I don't think I'm a very great ops leader, but we've always been able to hire people who were great in ops in a particular point in time at a company that we respected. So I think it's been an ongoing trial and error journey of hiring, thinking of different org charts, thinking of different incentives. It's also crazy because it's a journey for you as CEO,
Yes.
where there's times where maybe you were too soft because you wanted to be liked by everyone. then you become tough because you're stubborn on your vision, but you might pull that cart too far and then people quit. And so I think it's a very interesting journey that you have to go through to understand. It's very difficult to explain it on a podcast, but it is quite difficult. And honestly, I still don't know if I'm still doing too much. You know, I still help close our biggest deals. I still try to get super involved in very specific things to set an example when we're launching a new product. Or you know, I'll still every 3 months ask our team to help me shadow every screen of every workflow, because I want to understand, are we gaining leverage? Are we thinking about the right things? And I think now that's popular with Brian Chesky's founder mode thing. I always felt like an idiot for getting so involved in the weeds,
That's awesome.
despite having a great exec team. But I think I've learned to find my style, which is I want great executives that compliment me in the things I'm not good at. And then I want them to like when I want to get super in the weeds on something, because I need to understand the nuance and the details. And I think if you do it right, the team loves it. They love to see like, wow, Deepak is parachuting in on this like super granular thing.
Gives everybody energy.
Yeah, that I've never seen a CEO do in my other companies.
I love that.
And they give me those comments, but that can back it's a very specific balance.
It's a tightrope.
It's a tightrope. But yeah, I'm quite intense in that sense. And so when Brian put out that founder mode talk, it really resonated with me, because I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not a complete idiot, because that's been my style a little bit, right?
So bring us through. It's so interesting to hear like that the CEO of such a big company is still involved in like, it's amazing and inspirational. Take us through a typical day. What's a typical day in your life?
Wow, that's a good question. And this is where, when you said, are you doing too much? I still sometimes wonder if I am, because we've gotten to this point. I think Keith Raboy calls it like barrels versus ammunition, like people who can do many different things. I mean, I think founders are canonically barrels. They need to be able to, in a day, hop on a call to talk about, are we measuring the P&L of this business unit generating EBITDA successfully, and talking about that, and then zooming out and pitching a customer and demoing your software, to then talking with your board about stock option grants, and then talking with an M&A target, and then talking with a customer. You know what I mean? So I would say the versatility of my calendar is quite wild, in my opinion. And I think I've gotten good at the context switching. But what I've done, and these are small habits I learned. Actually, a big shout out. YC discontinued this program, but I did. We were selected for the YC Fall 2021 Growth Program, which was, we take the fastest growing YC companies at the time, we put 10 or 12 CEOs, and we do YC again, but for growth stage, hiring executives, setting up your exec team. And there were some little hacks that they taught me there that we still do. So I'll give you one example. Every Monday, we have a running Google document where every exec will write, what are the 3 things you're trying to get done this week? And I can briefly skim that for my execs and leave comments. So obviously they know that I'm reviewing it, although sometimes I forget because we have so much going on. But it's an interestingly focusing exercise, because it's like, what am I trying to get done this week? And then I'm always asking myself, are those the things that I should be doing? Because I see my role as, I should only be doing the things that I am uniquely empowered to do, and that maybe other teammates or executives cannot, right? And so it's a combination of knowing that I'm spending my time on things that I uniquely move the needle, but it's also a time to remember, are we doing the things that most move the needle, and that I have said will be the things that get us to the stratosphere? Like, I see my job as founder is making my team think about, how do we 10x, how do we 100x, not incremental little things that it's easy to get your mind just operating every day. So, you know, when we wanted to launch Managed Trans, it would be weeks on end of, I'm going to talk to the customers, I'm going to do the discovery, the 0 to 1 work. And then when I feel like we have something, we'll start handing off bits and pieces of it to our product team, to our sales team. Or right now, we are integrating Merge that we acquired. So a lot of it is, we want updates, we want to track. I want to be in the Slack channels where the founder of Merge and our R&D team are collaborating. Like, is this a healthy dynamic? Is it working well? Do I step in to help? But I always try to bring it back to, what are the 3 big things we need to get done? Or, you know, as a founder, you think very dramatically, or the company dies. You know, I don't think we're at risk of dying. Maybe we are, who knows? But I think we're not really at risk of dying that much anymore.
Of course.
But you're always thinking about that. And then I want to make sure that I'm spending my time on things that I'm uniquely positioned to do. And then the last one I'll say, and I didn't care about this one for the first 4 years, you really start caring about this in years 5 and onwards, I think, at least for me. I'm also trying to spend my time on things that give me energy and that the company needs.
Yes.
Because otherwise, when you're a hustler and a banker, like I always characterize myself, you can burn yourself out doing shit that you hate
Yeah.
and that someone else might love in the team, and kind of trying to work in your zone of genius, which is something I think Matt Mochari, this famous executive coach,
Awesome.
pioneered, right?
Very, very cool. And how do you find like work-life balance? Are you able to kind of get home at night and switch off and watch some TV? Do you have like a ritual on the weekends? Like,
Yeah, I don't think I'm great at this. I'm definitely not great at this. Yeah, like even last night, even if I have that routine that you just talked about, there's a deal we're negotiating that I can't talk about now, but we will announce soon. And there was a fire about that. So at 10 p.m., my plug down time, I had to get on the phone to help put down that fire.
wow.
Or there's an executive who we want to hire, and their company did this crazy counter offer before they left. So these are things that can't wait, right? And so
Yeah.
you have to do them.
Yeah.
But I would say in general, I've tried to move, again, having done investment banking and beating your chest of like, I work 100-hour weeks,
Yeah.
that's not sustainable,
No,
right? So
definitely.
I think I work in a very intense way, but I do it in sprints, and I try to structure my day in a way that, again, I think I can be most effective and show up to all these meetings with a lot of energy. The other interesting fact that I don't think people talk about is, as founder CEO, if you're in any meeting, you are a very important participant of that meeting, or you shouldn't be in that meeting.
Yes.
So you can't coast like I would at a big company, show up, be quiet, someone else does things. So I optimize to have a lot of energy in the meetings I'm in. And for that, I need to have tried to sleep well. I'm not doing a great job of that this year. I always slept well. This year, not so much. So that's one thing I'm trying to fix.
Yeah.
Or after 8 or 9 p.m., my wife is my secret weapon in everything in my life. She helps me really unplug and watch something stupid on Netflix.
Brilliant.
Otherwise, my default is to watch a great
Yeah.
podcast like this one, and then I'm not really unplugging. I'm thinking about work. So I have my rituals, but I will say it is the life of a venture-backed entrepreneur is not one where you can just unplug when you want,
Yeah.
but often you can unplug at certain times if you've set things up the right way and you have a strong team around you. And I think you need that, or you will burn out, so that you can jump in when it's needed, which again happens to me a couple times per week still, right?
Definitely. And we can't let you go without talking about tariffs a little bit. And I'd love to ask you two questions in relation to tariffs. The first is a general take on what you've seen, what you think might happen, and then kind of leaning in towards like how has that changed what you're doing in Nuvo and what you're building.
Yeah, this is one of those many, many counterintuitive things where I think people see the tariffs and they assume it's a nightmare for us or something like that. And to be honest with you, tariffs have been in some ways a tailwind for Nuvocargo, because for two reasons.
Amazing.
Number one, the tariffs and the entire rhetoric of this administration are really targeted at reducing dependency on China, right?
Yes.
And being more pro North America. So we've
Yes.
been very blessed. This was part of my whole, this is why I'm pivoting to this
Yeah.
business that has become true in ways I couldn't expect. Everything has become so pro North American trade
Yes.
and NAFTA and the USMCA and Spanish El TIMEC. Like that has actually become true. There's more and more reasons to believe, even if the US wants a pro-American agenda, they are leveraging their nearshoring allies or their neighbors, right? So that's been fine. And the second thing is when there are tariffs, ironically, I was just watching something yesterday where people were like, look, the biggest risk in startups is no one gives a shit about what you do. It's apathy. When
Yeah.
you do tariffs, suddenly all of our value prop becomes so important. Like,
Yeah.
if you're suffering with tariffs, here's a free consultation with our customs team. They'll
Excellent.
help you understand what's going on. We have detailed visibility with our technology on SKU data, helping you understand, there's some products that would just pay zero duties before. And now, even though there's a 25% tariff, there's a multiplier on that for other numbers. And now you don't even understand if your business can make money importing these products. And so we can help customers navigate that. We also have a lot of visibility at the border to help understand, even those days before the tariffs go in effect, which ones of my shipments are going to cross without tariffs. So I can do the math and accounting internally. So tariffs have not been bad for us. And now with the acquisition of Merge, our business is still predominantly moving freight in North America, in the US. So we are fine. We're benefiting, and we're trying to just be a great partner to our shippers and our prospects and our customers more than anything, right?
Yeah. Awesome. And has it kind of caused you to change the technological roadmap? Have you said, like, we need to we need more features and products around, kind of, as you mentioned, like helping customers understand what the difference is in products, because these things are happening so fast?
Yeah, I would say in some ways yes, but in general no. And the reason I would say that is because uh, once you've been doing this for the amount of years we have, you do start developing an opinion of like, okay, I've heard that feature request 10 times from customers.
Yeah.
So, for example, oh, should we build something unique to tariffs? The reality is the roadmap already contemplated how can we have extremely quick visibility from these endless email threads in customs, identify border visibility, and we have a free border AI agent that we built without the tariffs just to give you visibility at the border that had been in the works for so long, where you just CC an AI agent and now you have full visibility without needing to hire us for customs, understanding what's going on at the border, what are the milestones. And we also have in our managed transportation product a control tower where we use AI to understand not only the what you're paying for freight, but what's inside the truck at a SKU level, so you can calculate landed cost. So those are all things that help a lot in the tariff situation, but they were already on the roadmap or they were already built out because we know what we want to build and we have an opinion about what adds value to our customers, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deepak, for an absolutely energizing and inspirational conversation. Thank you for joining me today.
I want to say thank you to you with all your podcast listening. You helped me when I had really nothing. I just showed up to a conference asking people for advice and help, and you were motivating and inspiring, whereas a lot of people were skeptical and cynical. And your introduction to Josh was game changing. He's been an incredible partner, and yeah, very proud of everything you've built as well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much.
Is that good? I don't know if I was touching the mic too much. Is that good? Okay, cool.
Thanks so much, man.
Of course.
Awesome.
Yeah, I hope it was good. I hope it was to your expectations.
No,
Yeah.
I'm kind of learning on the job as well.
That seems to be the cool part of podcasts. You get to learn so much from other people on the job, for sure.
But I thought, like, with my network, there's a great opportunity to have, like,
Yeah.
great founders.
Totally.